Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to our ISKCON April Srimad Bhagavatam class. We'll begin with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimiraandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunadhanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We'll now recite the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam and how one can achieve God realization all the way to Prema through the hearing process. शुश्रूषो श्रद्धानस्य वासुदेवा कदा रुचि स्यान्महत् सेवया विप्रा पुण्यतीर्था निषेवनात् शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तना हृदयन्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतां नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी तथा रजस्तमो भावा कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्न मनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिश्छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशया क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, welcome again. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse 16. This is a beautiful chapter, very instructive for all of us. And this verse is actually taking a little bit turn from the previous topic that has been discussed and the topic that has been coming. It's a short verse and short purport. So I didn't know what to speak. So I was praying and then to Krishna and all the devotees for us to have some discussion which is meaningful for us, as we understand each verse, each line probably of Srimad Bhagavatam is potent to transform us, to help us reach our goal to lotus feet of Krishna. So I seek all of your blessings for me to be able to say something which is actually helpful for me and which is not a waste of time for all of you. So we'll begin. युधिष्ठिरो लब्धराज्यो दृष्ट्वा पौत्रं कुलन्धरं भ्रातृभिः लोकपालाभैर्मुमुदे परया श्रिया Yudhishthiro labdharajyo drishtva pautram kulandharam Bhratrabhir lokapalabhair mumude paraya shriya. What to what? Yudhishthira labdharajya, possessing his paternal kingdom, drishtva, by seeing, pautram, the grandson, kulandharam, just suitable for the dynasty, Bhratrabhi, by the brothers, Lokapalabhai, who were all expert administrators. Mumude, enjoy life. Paraya, uncommon. Shriya, opulence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Having won his kingdom and observed the birth of one grandson competent to continue the noble tradition of his family, Maharaja Yudhishthira reigned peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brothers, who were all expert administrators to the common people. Purport. Both Maharaja Yudhishthira and Arjuna were unhappy from the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra, but even though they were unwilling to kill their own men in the fight, it had to be done as a matter of duty, for it was planned by the supreme will of Lord Shri Krishna. After the battle, Maharaja Yudhishthira was unhappy over such mass killings. Practically, there was none to continue the Kuru dynasty after them, the Pandavas. The only remaining hope was the child in the womb of his daughter-in-law, Uttara, and he was also attacked by Ashwathama. But by the grace of the Lord, the child was saved. So, after the settlement of all disturbing conditions and re-establishment of the peaceful order of the state, and after seeing the surviving child Parikshit well satisfied, Maharaj Yudhishthira felt some relief as a human being, although he had very little attraction for material happiness, which is always illusory and temporary. So here we are seeing how Maharaj Yudhishthira, he has gone through so much immense troubles. Maharani Kunti, she describes all the kind of tribulations that they have gone through right from their childhood. They lost their father and then they had to be under their uncle. It's not even like he is in favor of them. He was in enmity, and Duryodhana and Pati were always trying to humiliate them and cause trouble to them. And then they were about to be burnt, and it's like innumerable things. And worst of all, their wife Draupadi was attempted to be disrobed. So it's like the calamity after calamity. If you see, it's immense, and we see what is going on. And in fact, Bhishma Dev says this, the kind of tribulations you have gone through, there is no way you can live. Aho kashtam, aho anyayam, yat yuyam dharmanandana, jivitum narhata klishtam. It's like extremely difficult for anyone. They won't be able to live through these difficulties. I mean, we may also go through some difficulties, apparent difficulties, and it's just not working. I just can't go through this. We feel that like this is the end of it. But how are they able to go through those difficulties? He says, Vipra Dharma Achyuta Shriya, Bhishma Dev says to Yudhishthira Maharaj, because of these three things that Pandavas were living by, Dharma, theistic conduct, Vipra, under the shelter of and guidance of the devotees, Vaishnavas or Brahmanas, and Achyuta, they're doing all their activities for the pleasure of Krishna. So that is how they were able to go through all those difficulties. So we can only imagine, after going through so many difficulties, if one gets relief from all those miseries, what kind of happiness and what kind of, state of mind they will be. So that's what is being described here. So both Maharaja Yudhishthira and Arjuna were unhappy from the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra, but even though they were unwilling to kill their own men in the fight, it had to be done as a matter of duty. for it was planned with the supreme will of Lord Shri Krishna. So we can understand this unhappiness because of their devotion to Krishna, their compassionate heart. They really don't want to incur such mass killings and cause so much trouble to everyone. But in spite of that, they had to do their duty as a Kshatriya. So that is something we can understand. The duty doesn't mean that, okay, I don't feel like, so I don't do it, or I feel like I do it. It's actually with detachment. And not only with detachment from the result, but actually attachment to Krishna. So they were actually following Krishna's instructions. And that is how they were able to carry out those duties, even though it's hard for them to do it and they were unhappy. And one more thing, which was very interesting, which came up as I was discussing with Vrindavan Prabhu, this unhappiness, how it's actually very glorious when a devotee who is completely immersed in an absorption of Krishna and the deep shelter taking, even their unhappiness is very glorious. So if we take an example of Arjuna, before the battle of Kurukshetra, he was very unhappy. But the result of that unhappiness is Bhagavad Gita, the manual for all the humankind. And in the similar way, we can see Maharaj Yudhishthira, he was unhappy. I mean, quite unhappy after the battle, that even Krishna could not satisfy his, kind of the grief that he's going through. Of course, it's Lord Krishna's arrangement that he wanted to glorify another devotee, Bhishma Dev. So he advised or recommended or encouraged Maharaj Yudhishthira to go to Bhishma Dev, who is on the deathbed, to receive the instructions. And this beautiful, beautiful instructions for the whole mankind, taking each and every varna, ashrama. Bhishma Dev actually describes what are all the duties. So that is the glory. But how that glory came, when they were unhappy, both Arjuna and Yudhishthira, they actually were not like, ignoring those feelings, saying, hey, it's okay, I'm supposed to be a devotee, I'm not supposed to have these negative feelings, forget about it, and I'll continue chanting and hearing, everything will go away. No, they were actually recognizing, they were actually connecting to their feelings and then submit it to their higher authorities. For their case, it's Lord Krishna and Bhishma Dev. They open their heart and they express their feelings of unhappiness. And that is how they were able to be pacified. Not only that, but we are also getting benefited. So one thing I was thinking about this instance is how it is important for us as practicing devotees. We need to be aware of our feelings and not just deny those feelings and saying, okay, sometimes we see that just chant and be happy, everything will go away. Yes, that is true if the quality of our chanting is in that kind of a state. But when we are practicing, when we have these things, we need to address them, we need to be with them, and we need to take that shelter and express those feelings to Krishna and his representatives in our life. That's why this having a guide or mentor in each of our lives is very, very important. So the other reason it's mentioned here, after the battle, Maharaj Yudhishthira was unhappy over such mass killings. Practically, there was none to continue the Kuru dynasty after them, the Pandavas. The only remaining hope was Maharaj Parikshit, who was inside the womb, and he was also attacked by Ashwatthama. So we can see, we can wonder why Maharaj Yudhishthira was unhappy that there is no one to continue Kuru dynasty. It's okay. I mean, he can be detached, and whoever can do the, take over the kingdom after the Pandavas. But he is not feeling that out of his attachment to his dynasty or glory, or to continue his own, glory or kingdom. But it's actually out of his duty. As a Kshatriya, they have this duty to take care of the citizens and also make sure a person who is capable of doing that duty, who is a representative of God and who can actually take care of the well-being of the people in the kingdom. So as a king, they have this responsibility as their duty. I mean, if they're a good king, they are supposed to look for a succession, making sure they have that kind of a person who can take care of the people after them. So it's really out of that duty and out of concern and care for the kingdom that he is actually feeling this thing, that there has to be someone to take care over the kingdom after them. So that is another thing I was thinking as I was going through this. When we are taking care of the duties, being Krishna conscious, we have to be actually doing them with even more diligence than a materialist. I mean, a materialist, um, as long as we have the tendency to get something for myself, I will just do whatever is giving me happiness. And after that, it's okay. Like, I'm not really getting the results, so let me not do. If it's office, let's say I'm working so much for promotion and someone else got promoted, it's like, okay, forget about it. I'm not anyway not going to get promoted now, so I'll not work. But it's not really about what we are getting or what we are not getting. It's really out of that duty platform and as a service to Krishna. So when we do the duties in that consciousness, we do it even more carefully, conscientiously, and even more wonderfully, which can actually benefit ourselves as well as others whom we are serving. So it's really in that perspective that Maharaj Yudhishthira was wanting to have a reign for the kingdom and heir for the kingdom, sorry. So, but by the grace of the Lord, the child was saved. So this is another beautiful thing. So it's actually a very big calamity for the Pandavas in one sense, that he is the only heir remaining and he is in the womb and there is nobody else who can be qualified to rule the kingdom. And even that child in the womb was attacked by Ashwatthama. But again, we can see how Mother Uttara, she actually went to Krishna and took shelter. How, this is actually the beautiful thing throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, which comes again and again. How to deal with these, states of difficulties, because these difficulties keep coming. We cannot say, okay, Krishna, I'm becoming your devotee. I don't want any difficulties. I have this prayer at times, Krishna, kindly give me some relief from these miseries. I really want to practice some, my devotional practices a little peacefully now, because it's like constantly some or the other disturbance from outside. If nothing else, the mind actually gets and says, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? So constantly we are on some or the other anxiety. But here we are understanding what does the devotee do when facing that kind of a difficulty. So she goes and says, Pahi Pahi Mahayogin Deva Deva Jagatpate. Other than you, there is nobody else to save me. Please, please save me. Actually, she says, save this child in my womb. And hearing her prayer, Krishna actually goes inside, or he's present inside the womb already, and then he saves the child. So this is another beautiful thing which happened with apparent unhappiness or difficulty, that Maharaj Parikshit was able to actually see Lord Krishna, a Supreme Lord, right within the womb, even before he took birth. So that is again another glory came out of this unhappy situation. So after the settlement of all disturbing conditions and re-establishment of the peaceful order of the state, and after seeing the surviving child Parikshit well satisfied, Maharaj Yudhishthira felt some relief as a human being. So we can only imagine how, with all those kind of calamities and like life-threatening situations, they came out of that and they have the kingdom now, and it's mentioned uncommon opulence. It's like never heard of, like the whole entire world they're ruling, and all his brothers, not only the Maharaj, all his brothers, everyone is very expert administrators and taking care of the common people very nicely. So that's why he reigned peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence. So I was caught by this, felt some relief as a human being, as I was mentioning about this, the feelings, either negative emotions or the positive emotions. As a human being, we have these feelings. So it's not that one is a pure devotee, so they don't have any feelings. Sometimes, initially I used to feel that out of immaturity, like, when I hear Srila Prabhupada becoming angry or some other thing, it's like, hey, wait a minute, how can they feel angry? Or how can they feel pain? It's like, some severe tooth pain, Lila Amrita, it's mentioned how painful it was. I was like, they're not supposed to feel the pain. But they do have this pain when we are going through that miseries. We have this feelings of pain, and when we have the happy situation, we have this feeling of relief and happiness. But what is different between a devotee and people like us is they're not carried away by that feelings. As Prabhupada is writing here, although he had very little attraction for material happiness, which is always illusory and temporary, so they understand the nature of this material world, that this is an illusory and temporary. So these things, the happiness and distress keep coming. In this fifth chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Narada Muni says, through the course of the time, Tasyeva Heto Prayateta Kovido, beautiful verse, he says, through the course of the time, these miseries and happiness just come, even if you're not waiting for them. So similarly, in each of our life, we have this experience. It goes through this cycle, happiness, distress, happiness, distress. If you're thinking, oh, I'm happy, I'm going to be happily, we see this happily ever after. That would never be the case. We are like, about to face another difficulty. And even through the difficulties, we can see this is not going to last forever. So what is one common thing through this changing material circumstances? These devotees deep shelter in Krishna, their mode of absorption in Krishna consciousness. So that is actually a constant. So it's not that they're not feeling any feelings. Through those feelings, they're not getting carried away by that. We were discussing this seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita in our Bhakti Shastri. These four kinds of people, Chaturvidha Bhajantema, the Artho, Jignasur, Ardhardi, except for the Gnani, the other three categories who are looking for wealth, who want some, just to satisfy their inquisitiveness or to relieve from distress. So they come and pray to Krishna. I was actually one of them. Probably even now I have those tendencies. So we go to Krishna and then pray, please relieve me from this distress, or please allow me to have this, house, car, or whatever it is. And please allow me this kind of realization or understanding of some kind of, some fancy knowledge or anything. But once that is being satisfied, then we are like, okay, we don't feel that deeper shelter in Krishna again once that misery is over. But here Maharaj Yudhishthira was not like that. Even through those disturbances, or even when they're feeling this relief now, their attachment to Krishna is very, very strong. So that is something we can understand and take from this verse, how devotees doesn't mean that we don't have any feelings or we negate those feelings. Either negative emotions or positive emotions, we don't deny them, but we recognize and accept, and we go to Krishna, or in his representative spiritual master and our guides in our life, and express, open our heart, and something glorious can come out of that for us to go closer to Guru and Krishna. So just to summarize the key points, so here we are understanding how Maharaj Yudhishthira and Pandavas, after going through all the difficulties, they felt relief and happy and enjoy, not as a common people, but as a devotees with complete attachment to the Lord and detachment from the sense gratificatory propensity, this uncommon opulence. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was also felt secured and satisfied, seeing that there is a heir, Maharaj Parikshit, who can take over after them the kingdom. And then we also saw how their unhappiness for Arjuna and Maharaj Parikshit, and even for that case, Shukadeva Goswami, it's glorious when they actually open their heart and express their unhappiness to the people who were able to pacify them, and also gave Bhagavad Gita and Bhishmadev's instructions, and also Srimad Bhagavatam. So yeah, how the devotees, whether it's a happy situation or a miserable situation, how their attachment is constant, and how it actually helps them to take deeper shelter. So that's what I have. Kindly share your thoughts, any comments, corrections, and kindly forgive me if I went other than the purport. I was attending this course on impact of grief on spiritual growth by Her Grace Rambaru Mataji, who's a Srila Prabhupada's disciple. So those kind of thoughts were in the back of my mind, so which actually kind of came up in the talk. It's a beautiful course. How we should not neglect our feelings, but how to be with them and how to address them and grow holistically from inside out. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Amrita-keli Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
All glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Maybe you can share a little bit of that course. I mean, I'm sure you remember very well. So, little bit of details of that in the few minutes, just few minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a 5-week course, 2 hours on each Saturday, and it's basically how this grief, when we don't address it in a healthy way, because I mean we may not be very equipped to understand what is grief and how to deal with it. I mean, not only as devotees, even in general, we would just say anytime we face a loss, we are like, oh, okay, just get over it and don't bother about it or something. But just to understand that each of us are carrying this grief, I mean, from this life or past lives, that is the first step. And then really being with that, and then not denying it, and then seeking out help. If it's not addressed in that healthy way, if it's not, recognized, and we are not being with it, even for that matter, all kinds of negative emotions, they can come back. We may say deny and subdue those feelings. But if not addressed, they can actually become I was thinking about this example. A child is crying for something. We don't address what the child wants at that particular time. So the child will be like that. And suddenly, he or she will burst and crying, angry, and all kinds of weird behavior, throw tantrums. We are like, what is happening? You were okay till now. What's going on? So, if it's not addressed properly, if we could address at that time, he is feeling a pain or hungry or whatever, if you are with the child and acknowledging, accepting his needs, and then taking care, okay, he wants this or he wants that. So in the similar way, when those kind of feelings are coming from inside, we can understand, okay, I'm feeling this pain for whatever this particular thing. Okay, some devotee moved from here. We have a very close relationship with them. We definitely feel that loss. And we acknowledge that feeling, and we try to, be with that feelings and be with that person in that memories, instead of denying. It's okay, let them go, and I'll carry on with my duties or services. So that is really, the main thing that I have got from this. And there are different tools that Rambaru Mataji has shared, very beautiful, and I feel very, very important for all the practicing devotees to understand this. If not addressed properly, it can come in different ways, causing, problems to ourselves and in the relationships and the way we can do services. Yeah, actually there is one more course coming up, I think. If you're interested, I can share those details with you, Mataji. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Any other thoughts or questions or additions? 7:30 already. Okay, if nothing else, thank you so much for your time, and you all have a very wonderful Krishna conscious day. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.